Good evening. This is a meeting of the Athens Board of Zoning Appeals. The time is 7:01 p.m. and the date is April 11th. At this time, I will call the meeting to order. The board consists of 5 members and 2 alternates, the alternates taking full part in the discussions and becoming a voting member in the absence of a member or when a member abstains for conflict of interest. Present tonight are members Robert Delich, Joe Kraus, Kelly Sauber, and Kay Towsley, and alternate Aaron Thomas. I am Lisa Carson, the chair. At this time, I invite you to view a pre-recorded video on the rules and procedures. The Athens Board of Zoning Appeals operates according to the following procedure. The chair will name and describe the case. The zoning administrator or secretary will state the basis of the objection and any applicable facts or conditions pertaining to the case. The appellant or their representative will give reason why the appeal should be viewed favorably. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of the request will be heard. Anyone wishing to speak in general comment will be heard. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition will be heard. If necessary, the appellant or their representative will offer concluding, summary, or rebuttal remarks. Testimony from the floor shall be closed. The board will deliberate and render a decision. According to Athens City Code, Section 23.07.03b, the board has power to grant variances from the strict application of the code, provided the variance will not be contrary to the public interest, the spirit of the code is observed, public safety and welfare are secured, and substantial justice is done. According to Athens City Code, Section 23.07.10c, variances from the code shall not be granted unless the board makes specific findings of fact based directly on the particular evidence presented to it, that the standards and conditions imposed in this title, if applicable, have been met by the applicant. Exceptional circumstances. There are exceptional or extraordinary circumstances or conditions applying to the property in question or to the intended use of the property that do not apply generally to other properties or classes or uses in the same zone. Practical difficulty and undue hardship. Because of exceptional or extraordinary circumstances or conditions pertaining to a specific piece of property, a literal enforcement of these regulations will result in practical difficulty or undue hardship that is unnecessary to the achievement of public purposes. Preservation of equal property rights. Literal interpretation of these regulations would deprive the appellant of rights commonly enjoyed by others in the same zone and the same vicinity, while a granting of the requested variance will not confer on the applicant any special privilege that is denied to other properties in the same zone and the same vicinity. Minimum variance. The variance granted is the minimum variance required to make possible the reasonable use of the property. Absence of detriment. The authorizing of such variance will not be of substantial detriment to adjacent property and will not materially impair the purpose of the zoning code or the public interest. Not of a general nature. The condition or situation of the specific piece of property or the intended use of said property for which variance is sought, one or the other or in combination, is not of so general or recurrent a nature as to make reasonably practicable the formulation of a general regulation for such condition or situation. Any person, resident, or officer, department, or appointed body of the City of Athens, aggrieved by a decision of the board, may petition the Athens County Court of Common Pleas concerning the illegality of the decision. Such petition must be filed within 30 days after the mailing of the decision of the board to the applicant. Thank you. Case on tonight's agenda at the property at 23 First Street. The board is required to take testimony under oath. Would anyone wishing to speak concerning any item on the agenda or the one item on the agenda, please stand. Do you swear or affirm that any testimony you will present to the board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you. So I just want to point out that David Riggs is not here. That was, I was notified of that a few hours ago, and I apologize. I should have let everyone know. I don't know. Because if you had questions, we could have, at that point, maybe emailed. But in future, if this happens, I'll let you know. So, case 2302V at 23 First Street, the appellant requests a variance from Athens City Code 23, I think it's a typo on the agenda, 231001, Table B, to allow a rental permit on a property with 0 parking spaces, where 3 are required. And ordinarily, we would direct any questions to Mr. Riggs, but since he's not here, you are welcome to approach the podium. And please give your name and address and let us know why we should support the variance.
Thank you. I'm David Mott, attorney for Athens Flag Properties, LLC, of the firm Malika Golf, Sloan and Sillery at 35 North College Street.
Thank you.
The only reason that I'm here with my client is because this is a fairly unique property. There are lots of properties around the city that don't have off-street parking. This one has no possibility of adding off-street parking. The lot is 45 feet wide, so there's not room to get around behind the house. The house only sits back 10 feet from the road, so there's not room to add parking in front of it. There's a steep hillside, so there's not really many places that you could cut in parking. Because this is a unique property, my client feels that practical difficulty due to undue hardship, exceptional circumstances, minimum variance, and not of a general nature are all satisfied here. I also want to note that even for an owner-occupied property, 2 off-street parking spaces would be required, and this property can still provide 0 because of how it's physically situated. Additionally, First Street, as I'm sure all of you are aware, has many rentals. The active permits on file with the code office indicate that 22 of 36 or 37 properties on First Street are residential rentals, and of those 22, 11 have no off-street parking, and an additional 4 do not have the full off-street parking that they are supposed to have.
Could you repeat that? I'm sorry. You said 22
Sure.
out of 36 of the properties are residential rentals.
36 or 37 or so. A
Okay.
couple of them, I think, have a half number with them.
Okay.
And 22 currently have active permits. This one will be number 23 if the variance is granted.
And what did you say about how many don't have
11
off-street
of those
parking?
22 have no off-street parking, and another 4 have insufficient off-street parking.
Okay, thank you.
And also, this is an established neighborhood. The houses over there are not new. The parking conditions over there are pre-existent for a long time. Most residents park on the street. For these reasons, my client believes that the factors of preservation of equal property rights and absence of detriment have been demonstrated. This is essentially no change from the status quo, other than the property was most recently owner-occupied and now it would be a rental. And I'm happy to take any questions you may have.
Anyone have questions?
Where did the previous owner park? They parked on the street?
If they had a vehicle, presumably they parked on the street. There's nowhere else to park at this property.
But you guys, you don't know?
Don't know. The property was acquired through a sheriff's sale.
Okay.
I guess then normally we'd ask Mr. Riggs, you've already answered some of the questions that we would have had for Mr. Riggs. Thank you for the numbers you provided. That was very helpful.
You can thank him or the grunt in his office who pulled out all the paperwork for me.
Excellent, thank you. What was I going to ask now? I lost my train of thought, sorry. So the history of the property, sheriff's sale, it was a rental before that, or do we know?
Immediately before the sheriff's sale, it was owner-occupied. At some point, somewhere between the dawn of creation and now, presumably it has been a rental. Most properties in that area at one point or another have been. I don't have the full history on that property.
Good enough, though. Thank you.
I am wondering if Aaron should vote for me. I own 37 First Street, and I am one of, so I'll say this, I am one of the 11 he's talking about, and I inherited it when acquiring the property. we don't have off-street parking. People park on the street, which is simply why I was asking what the previous situation was. Do you think it would be pertinent we have Aaron vote for me? Just in this, since I'm a neighbor.
I would think so.
Okay.
If that's okay with Aaron.
That's fine.
I can contribute though, as far as his, as far as his points. It is a heavily residential area with very, very, very limited parking availability. And my property was similar to his. There was no way to add anything to 37. So, you know, I can see where they are coming from.
Did you get a variance or?
If there was a variance, it was before
It was with
the property.
Okay. I would have thought that more than 11 wouldn't have, because that's such an old neighborhood. Do you know when the houses were built?
A long time before I was born, I believe.
Yeah. I mean, it just seems like all of the houses were problematic in terms of how close they are
Yes,
together.
that
the
is
hill.
11 of the 22 permitted rentals. Of the remaining properties, there are probably at least another half dozen or so owner-occupied that have
Okay.
no off-street parking. And additionally, several of them only have one space or two spaces for a house that is permitted for 3 to 5.
Are there any other questions?
Maybe one for Joe. Are you aware from your renters of any difficulties they've expressed with parking in the area?
There's a lot of congestion on the street. I don't see necessarily how they would make it worse. It already is. It's already fairly,
It's that whole neighborhood.
yeah, fairly, you know, bad that way. But I have never heard a real complaint. I've heard maybe they got to walk 6 or 7 houses to get there, but they're able to park.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions for the appellant's representative? No? Did you say no?
No, I was, I was going to say, he did point out that whether it was owner occupied or rental, need 2 parking spaces.
Right. There would be no
So the
use
house
at
would
all
be-
of the property
no
without,
use
yeah.
at all without.
Okay.
Hmm.
Okay, do you have anything to add? If not, I will, what is it called?
Close the floor.
Close the floor.
You may close the floor.
Thank you. So I just want to say at the outset that there is a real tension. I mean, these old neighborhoods, we know that there are parking issues. People complain about it all the time. But then you look at these little houses and think the only alternative, I mean, you can't use the houses, you know, unless you permit even more parking on the street. So that was, it seemed to me there's just a collision of interest there. And we sort of have to just go with what we think.
It's the way that they're laid out too. It's a big hillside,
Yeah.
and 37 First Street has a huge backyard. You know, there was ample, if there was a way to
Yeah.
get there, you
Yeah.
know, as far as the property I own, you could lose some land and still get cars, but there's no way to actually get them there.
It's a funny little street.
A lot of
Funny
the plots
streets
are just inconsistent in town.
Yeah.
You know, you got all this and then you got this and then you go down, you get that way, and it's like,
Yeah.
and we get that a lot. People come in and say, yeah, you know, I got this property, you know, and they're joined against a house that has twice the property, you know, it's like, all right, well, the setback is different from here to there. And I mean, that's Athens.
Yeah, I agree. It is Athens. So,
Can I add my 2
Yeah.
cents, I think, about the sort of my philosophy here is that there is definitely a market for people that don't have cars, too.
right.
So maybe that's what they should be thinking about, is looking for those kind of tenants. I do hear complaints on the west side in particular about the 24-hour towing ordinance, not towing, parking ordinance. You have to
Right.
move your car every 24 hours, or else you can be ticketed. That is a bit onerous, honestly, and it's a bit of a hassle for somebody who has a car that would have to park on the street every day. But it is what it is, I think, and that the tenants would know that coming in, or should know that coming in, or come in without a car. And I think this is perfectly fine.
Parts of the east side had the same issue.
Right.
With that, because we had people in the past talk about that with the 24-hour having to move their car on some of the places like around Sunnyside, around that area, so.
It's easier to tell people uptown, you know, that are close and around Court Street that you don't need a vehicle. First Street's a little ways.
Yeah,
And
but,
so I'm with Rob. Everything we could do to make everything more bike accessible is good. But I definitely think Kelly's point is true. This property's fairly limited, you know, with the street and the situation that it's in.
it really is, yeah. Well, should we go through the findings? Do we have the motion before the findings, or no? We did? No.
Yeah, we got a
Where's
motion.
David?
Where's David?
We got a motion. we got a
Motion
motion.
first, then findings? No.
My observation in the past has been a motion that we comes first.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
We got a,
Do you want to sit over there, David?
Okay, who will make a motion? noting that
I'll
there's-
make a motion.
Yeah, thank
Make a motion to grant a variance for 23 First Street. ACC 33.10.0.
you. Yeah, it's gotta be
That's a typo.
2-3, sorry.
Oh, ACC 23.10.01. Table B to allow a rental permit on the property with 0 parking space where 3 are required.
Thank you. Second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Alrighty, so the findings. Are there exceptional circumstances applying to the property in question, et cetera?
No place to park.
There's no place to park, and it's a crazy hill.
Am I allowed to give an opinion in these parts and just not vote, or am I supposed to be quiet?
Probably.
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
all right. Yes, I think so.
Yeah, that's,
Practical difficulty or undue hardship, it's pretty much the same as exceptional
Unless he
circumstances.
came down from Hanlon with a driveway.
Yeah. Preservation of equal property rights, is that an issue here?
as stated, lots of other property owners don't have parking available. Variances or were grandfathered in, so.
Right. Minimum variance, Kelly already pointed out that even if the owners were to live there, they would have to get a variance.
So that would be a minimum.
Yeah, this is pretty close to, yeah, pretty close. Absence of detriment, will it be of detriment to adjacent property? Well, certainly, parking is an issue, and, you know, more on North Street parkers could be of detriment, but that's just a fact in that part of town. And no one has come forward to complain about the possible variance.
Well, and the alternative it would be a vacant property.
That's true.
Right.
Like it was.
That's a good point. Is the condition or situation, of a general nature?
Not the way code means.
Yeah, not the way code means. All right, then I will ask, all in favor of granting the variance, please raise your right hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that's everybody. That's it. Thank you so much. You've got the variance. Thanks for coming in. Thank you, you too. Our only other business is to approve the minutes from February 14th. I think we already talked about, they were sent out in,
Sent up
yeah,
before, and then we
in
didn't have
March.
the meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't find any problems with them. Did anyone have any? Okay, so in that case, I will ask that all who would wish to approve the minutes of February 14th, please raise your right hand. And there we have it. This meeting is adjourned.